I will let you make the comparison, but really, one's talking crap and the other's talking a whole load of sense. Marsha Blackburn just spent 10 minutes. This is just, well, it's toilet. Why doesn't Chuck Schumer literally...
Colleague, the senior senator from the state of Tennessee, I'd love to get her thoughts on what happened today.
Thank you so much to the senator from Utah for organizing this. You know, Madam President, I think it is so important for the American people to really understand what did happen here today. And what we saw happen here today is a violation of our oath, the oath that we take, that we are going to abide by the Constitution. Now, those who are watching this, and I would encourage all of my colleagues among us to pull out that Constitution and read Article 1, Section 2, which lays out the process of impeachment for the House of Representatives. And then Section 3 of that Constitution lays out the duty of the Senate in that Constitution. Now, I have a poster up here from 2019. It is Chuck Schumer. This was during the Trump impeachment in 2019. Now, Chuck Schumer, who's currently the majority leader, basically made a full-time job of talking about how the Senate had to do their constitutional duty to hold a trial. That's all he talked about for days. The clips are all over the internet. One thing he repeatedly said, we have a responsibility to let the facts come out. A responsibility. Now, we have to say what has changed between 2019, 2020, and today. Well, of course, we know what changed for Chuck Schumer because he's desperate to hold on to the majority in this House. And he did not want some of the senators who are highly contested in their races to have to take a vote on the Mayorkas impeachment. Why is that, Madam President? It is because the number one issue with the American people is that open southern border. And who is it that has regularly lied to this chamber, to the House, and to the American people about what's going on at the southern border? It is Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Repeatedly lied, repeatedly stood before the American people, stood before us in hearings and committees and said, the border is secure. Anyone who is watching, anyone who's ever been to that border, knows the border is not secure. They know that on the Mexico side of that border, it is being run by the cartels. You can spend an hour with the Border Patrol and you will find out. Last year, there were people from 170 different countries that came to that southern border seeking entry. Not a one of them got here on their own. They get flown to Mexico, they pay the cartels, and the cartels bring them over. The cartels are making a fortune. We are paying the price. And we're paying this price because of the dereliction of duty carried out by Secretary Mayorkas. The way he's not standing up for the Border Patrol, the way he's not standing up for the American people, that is an issue. And yes, a responsibility. Did we have that responsibility? You bet we do. And that is why we are here on this floor to talk about this. Because our border, when you look at the drugs, the fentanyl that are coming across that border, and moving into communities across this state, this country. Every state, a border state. Every town, a border town. Every single family affected are worried about the consequences of the border. Thousands of Americans dead from fentanyl poisoning. Other Americans that have become angel parents because their children, their spouses have been killed in auto accidents by criminal, illegal aliens. What they have done to this country by opening that border, and you know the sad thing about this? It is very intentional. This is their border policy. They intend to do this. So looking at the drugs, looking at the crime and the gangs, and then, of course, looking at the human trafficking. On Mayorkas' watch, and Madam President, this is something that is so important for the American people to know. In Tennessee, we have several groups that work on human trafficking and seek to rescue women and girls and children that are being trafficked, sexually trafficked. The exploitation of these children. And we know that is driven by the cartels. The cartels have turned human trafficking in this country from a $500 million a year industry. Over the last 3.5 years, it has become a $13 billion with the B. People are being trafficked. Indeed, children are being used as aids for these traffickers. They're being recycled. And these precious children have their name, they have the contact name and the phone number in indelible ink written on their backs, written on their arms, because the cartel uses these children to get cartel members across the border posing as families. And then, once that cartel member is in the U.S., they turn that child loose. And then the child gets sent back. That is disgusting. But because of Biden and Mayorkas and the open border, that is what is happening. Now, even worse, we have an issue that Secretary Mayorkas claims he knew nothing about, and it was the loss of 85,000 migrant children. Now, we've got 400,000 migrant children that have been turned over to the federal government under Secretary Mayorkas. Out of this, 85,000 of those children cannot be accounted for. We've asked Secretary Becerra, we've asked Secretary Mayorkas, where are these children? They do not know. They do not know if these 85,000 children are dead or alive. They do not know if they've been attached to drug mules or drug traffickers, or if they've been put into gangs, labor crews. What we did find out from some reporters, Madam Secretary, is this. We found out that some of these children were working in slaughterhouses in the night. That's what we found out. And oh, by the way, that was from a New York Times reporter. This situation at the southern border is a humanitarian crisis. The trafficking of human beings is a crisis. Using human beings as chattel, that is a crisis. Putting people into indentured servitude and slavery, that is a crisis. And who has lied about this repeatedly to the Senate, to the House, is Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. And who voted for it? Every Democrat on that side of the aisle that refused to let this trial come forward, each and every one. You are responsible for this not coming to light. It is a dereliction of your constitutional duty and a responsibility. Yes, it is a responsibility that we as members have to make certain that the American people know what happened today.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Another great mind we've all benefited from in the Senate is our friend and colleague.
What we saw today was a microcosm of this impeachment since day one. Hallowed, frivolous, political. And we felt very strongly that we had to set a precedent that impeachment should never be used to settle policy disagreements. I felt that very strongly. This is the first impeachment I can recall. You look at history. None were done because there were policy disagreements. If we allowed that to happen, it would set a disastrous precedent for Congress, could throw our system of checks and balances into cycles of chaos. Any time the House would want to just shut the Senate down, they could send over another impeachment resolution and could create frivolous impeachment trial after impeachment trial. So I felt it really important. The dangerous precedent was not the one the Republicans are talking about, but the one of letting impeachment take the place of policy disagreements. Cabinet person after cabinet person could be subject to this. We cannot have that happen, and I felt that that's what the Senate had to do to step up to its responsibilities. We're supposed to have debates on the issues, not impeachments on the issues. We are not supposed to say that when you disagree with someone on policy, then that's suddenly a high crime and misdemeanor. That would degrade government. It's clear that Republicans aren't interested in working with Democrats to fix the problems at the border. In fact, if they wanted to pass the bipartisan proposal we put together and have a debate on it about policy, fine. If Republicans, instead of spending so much time and energy on this meritless impeachment, work with Democrats on border reform, then we might have actually gotten something done. If House Republicans want to have a serious debate on border security, we welcome it. But everyone knows what's happening at the border is terrible and needs fixing. That's not a secret. The President knows it. Secretary Mayorkas knows it. Both parties in Congress know it. That's exactly why we had a bipartisan bill to fix it. Democrats worked hand in hand with Republicans for 4 months to draft the strongest border security bill in 30 years, a bill with dramatic updates to asylum and reformed parole, a bill that provided new tools for addressing the fentanyl crisis, a bill that provided new resources to Border Patrol agents. If our Republican colleagues would have allowed it to come to the floor here in the Senate and down the hall over in the House, I'm certain it would have passed and gone to the President's desk. But we all know what happened. Donald Trump told his Republican allies in Congress to kill this border bill before we could even debate it. The former president explicitly took credit for that bill going down. "Please, blame it on me," he said. His words. So let me say it just one more time. If Republicans, instead of spending so much time and energy on this meritless impeachment, worked with Democrats on border reform, we might have actually gotten something done on this very serious issue. Questions on this subject first.
The implication from Senator Cornyn's parliamentary inquiry just now during the trial was that a future Republican-led Senate could use the precedent you set today to dismiss an impeachment trial against a Republican.
No, the parliamentarian ruled that the precedent set was the precedent that was done here. Don't use impeachment for policy disagreements, whether it's with a president, a cabinet secretary, or anyone else.
You're not worried that Republicans will do that?
No, we have made it clear that you don't use policy disagreements for impeachment. And I don't care who it is, president, cabinet secretary, or anybody else. And if we didn't make that clear, it would have been much worse for what you're talking about. Yes. Anyone else on this subject? Yes.
Your point of order was that the Article 2 allegation did not actually allege a high crime or misdemeanor. The allegation was that the Secretary lied to Congress. Now, under oath, you may disagree with the facts of that, but just on that allegation.
Look, here's the bottom line. Everyone knows these were policy disagreements, never rising to what the Founding Fathers intended with impeachment with high crimes and misdemeanors. It was clear as day, and that's why the parliamentarian ruled in our favor on impeachment. Anyone else? Yes.
Mike Lee is very upset, and he says that he's going to retaliate by slowing business on the Senate floor like he did earlier this week with the motion table, the motion to proceed. What is your response to his threat?
We have so many things. We have so many things we have to get done for the future of this country that I don't think that is an appropriate reaction. Yes.
When will the Senate take up the House foreign aid bills that they plan to vote on Saturday, and do you think it'll pass?
Do you mean the supplemental?
Well, their version of it, yes.
Well, okay, let me just say three things. First, it seems that what they're sending to us is very similar to the supplemental that the Senate passed with a strong bipartisan majority, 70 to 22. But I haven't seen the language. I want to see the language and what has happened when they posted it. I've been in impeachment all day before making any final judgments, and I'd like to get it done as quickly as possible. Nope, next question. Yeah, I'm filing cloture tomorrow to move forward on FISA. We still don't know the amendments on either side, so we can't specifically lay out what's going to happen until we see what those amendments are. I think right now that the impeachment trial has been concluded, each side is going to look at what amendments different members want. Yes. If the precedent were any time there's a policy disagreement and the House impeached and sent it to the Senate and you had to have a long and consuming trial, that would have been a bad precedent.
What would have been the issue with doing a trial committee instead?
Well, again, a trial committee just then relates to having a trial on the floor. Makes it even longer and more stretched out. If it's a policy if it's a real high crime and misdemeanor and there are arguable claims that it is, obviously that's what the Founding Fathers intended in impeachment. If it's a policy disagreement, that's never what they intended. Yes?
From a scheduling standpoint, are you guys supposed to be on recess next week? Are you just going to stay in and try to do this stuff?
Well, look, we don't know when the House is sending it to us, and once they do, we'll be able to plot out where we'll go, and we have to do it, as I said, as expeditiously as possible. Burgess.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, we want members to be on standby to make sure that...
Same answer as I gave to your friend from NBC. Last one.
The TikTok bill is part of the discussions on the House side in the supplemental. Is that something you support, and would that be a problem?
Okay.
If that becomes
The House put it in. I haven't seen the language. I'm going to study the language. Okay? Thank you, everybody.